Hi everyone, my name is Travis Galloway, and today I'm going to talk to you about dealing with morality in Japan. I could come up with a lot of reasons why I chose Japan, but since I've been living in Japan, I could tell you why I love Japan, their culture and their people. I could tell you the people are very polite, friendly, they're kind, they're helpful. If you're lost at a train station, which happened to me before, they will actually come up to you and help you out. They will direct you. They not only direct you where to go, they will basically walk you there if you're lost, wherever you need to go. The people, the culture itself, you feel a lot safer when you're out of town mingling with the Japanese people. I've seen kids young as 10 years old just walking by themselves, going around. And I know in the Western countries, America, that's something that's uncommon. So I find that very interesting. So that kind of gives me a warmer fuzzy about Japan, living here in Japan. A slight overview about Japan is the population of Japan is about 98% ethnic Japanese people living in Japan. The population recorded in 2015 was over 127 million. And the amazing thing about that to me is the size of Japan is about the size of California. 27 million people living in one small state. The population is less than America, but try to put it in perspective, the population of America is over 300 million. We have 50 states, and Japan, the size of California, have 127 million. I'll keep reading that, but it just sounds amazing to me. The Japanese people are very efficient in what they're doing. They truly believe in recycling everything they use, they process. A lot of things I've witnessed they've been doing is just efficient. They believe in that reuse mentality. And another thing in my research that I've read about is the Japanese population is getting old. The population, most of the population they're aging, and they're kind of working in that dilemma of the aging population. Who's going to care for the aging population as they're getting older and older? As much as I want to say or believe that Japan is a perfect nation and the things they do are basically really above everyone else, Japan do suffer from certain moral issues. And as a leader coming into Japan and seeing some of the stuff they do, it's kind of strange. And one of the things I've seen, one of the moral issues I've witnessed is diversity. Especially a lot of large organizations, I would say they suffer from having a diverse group of people, especially women in the workplace. There are not a lot of women working in the workplace. There are not a lot of women in leadership position. And I've witnessed this kind of firsthand going into a meeting and seeing a lot of male figures, and you may see one woman working there, and she's more likely either a secretary or she's just working in the background. And coming from America, that culture, it's kind of strange to see that. Not to say America is perfect in what they do or they're not diverse, but coming from that, seeing more women in the workplace and more women in leadership, and coming to Japan way of living is kind of strange. And not saying Japan government do support employing more women in the workplace, But the way it is here, women are not having that leadership position, and going into a meeting and seeing that, you kind of want to ask that question, why is this not happening? And it kinds of, to me, it's not showing that respect. And another moral issue I've seen is the Japanese people, they don't usually speak up when there's an issue. So if we're in a meeting, the Japanese usually will hold back saying anything because they see it as a sign of disrespect. If somebody's saying something that's offensive or anything, or something that's kind of demeaning, they would kind of like sit back. They don't want to say, okay, I object to that. So it's hard to get information from people. Like, if you object to something, say it out. And that's coming from the American style, American culture. And I see it as more of a moral issue because it affects a lot of people there, the shareholders, so to speak, the stakeholders, so to speak. It may seem Japan is a very great nation, so to speak, or a perfect nation, but from my point of view, because Japan does suffer some moral issues, coming as an organizational leader. The first moral issue Japan faces is organizations. They tend to treat diversity a lot different, especially towards women. They see women as people who should be housewives, basically stay home, take care of the kids. They don't see women being in any leadership position, and I see that from experience just being here. A lot of women are not in a position of leadership, or they're not in a position to basically be a leader or have some kind of technical knowledge of anything. The last time I saw a woman where she was a secretary, that's basically a job. As much as I want to say Japan is a perfect nation, they do suffer from certain moral issues. And coming in as an organizational leader, one of the moral issues I've experienced so far being in Japan is the way they treat diversity, and diversity towards women, and women being employed into a certain organization or any kind of organization, so to speak. From experience of being in meetings, you could barely see women presence in a meeting or anything per se. They kind of see women being as people who should be at home, housewife, taking care of the kids, and coming from a different culture, that's kind of very hard to see that. And another moral issue I've witnessed, and I think I'll experience being an organizational leader, is, so to speak, getting people to speak up. And when I say getting people to speak up, I'm talking about in a team, working in a team sense, and I'm being a leader, and people are very scared to speak up because they're not in that leadership position. So that's one of those things I think it's kind of a moral issue. Like, if something happens, they feel like they don't have a voice to speak up because they're not in that leadership position. And since I've been living here in Japan, I've been doing a lot of research on a lot of things about Japan, the culture, and there are a few resources I've been using, some of the websites I've listed here, and some of the training events, like the first one I have, attend Peace-Minded, JAP, training events for diversity, and that's kind of put me in the right direction to figure out like why there's a diversity issue and what can I do without offending anybody in the Japanese culture in terms of asking that question, why is diversity issue? And And I've done a lot of research. I've tried to do a lot of research on diversity and why they're not including certain things in their way of thinking, their way of doing business. And I'm trying more to learn about the history and the everyday culture of Japan and some of the things they do and why they do it, so as to not offend them. And I'm trying to learn more about their laws too, and how that law will affect me in my decision making, my everyday decision making, working my way around. And learn the language. And I'm have to learn the Japanese language. Living in Japan or living in any foreign country, I think it's a requirement you learn something about their language. And that's one of the things I've been pushing, and I think that will help leadership coming into Japan. When it comes to relevant stakeholders and stakeholder interests, I would say the Japanese organization itself, the people in the organization itself, non-Japanese who are working for that company, Japanese themselves, their family, the whole team, the community that they work in. The shareholders, they're the one that pays the bill. They're the one. We have a responsibility, like in previous lecture, to make a profit for them. The clients, customers. When it comes to alternative actions and pros and cons, one need to establish cross-culture training evolutions. Cross-culture training evolution would help to raise awareness of certain differences in attitudes, culture, way of thinking, and that would help maintain that connection. And being more flexible and being patient when communicating with Japanese is very important, because for the most part Japanese people are very patient and flexible. So you on the other side should have that patience working with Japanese people. Pros and cons. When it comes to establishing cross-culture training, this can be lengthy a process. This costs money to do that. So, but in the long run, for the pros, it would pay off big in the end. So, cross-culture training is one of those things I think it's good to have. And being flexible may put leadership in a position that makes them seem as pushovers, people they could say whatever to and just get away with it. When it comes to conflicting principle, as an organizational leader working in Japan, sometimes honesty may seem unkind. And you don't want to stand that chance of offending people in Japan doing work or doing business in Japan. Because of my culture, culture I'm coming from, it may seem wrong in the Japanese culture to speak up when there's an issue. And I might stand a chance of insulting somebody in speaking up if there's an issue. So I have to kind of thread on thin ice with that. I stand a chance of being isolated from meetings too, for being honest in certain instances. Applicable principles and preferable action. I would say avoid insulting the Japanese team employees. Try to follow their traditions. You're in their country, try to follow their traditions. Continuously have training events that foster positive cross-culture. Preferable action. Respect the rights of others is the best course of action for many moral issues. And this is a way of showing respect to learn a country's culture while you're there. Cross-cultural training provides strong base for desired behaviors in work environment. It reinforces certain things. The people of Japan are very traditional, and they're not very fond of the diverting from their culture. So as an organizational leader, you have to kind of meet the Japanese people halfway by trading cultural information.